On today's EyeSwoon Unplugged, I am going to make for you a rustic crostata using raspberries and some lime zest and some thyme. However, what I love so much about this dessert, and it's one that I can make any time of the year, is that it's somewhat foolproof. A crostata or a galette is essentially a rustic tart, which means that you fold over the dough after you put your ingredients and your fruit on the inside, and you can fold it over in any which way, haphazardly, and it still comes out looking beautiful because it is meant to be rustic in its form. This is a really versatile dough that I'm going to show you how to make that you can use for pies. You can also use it for a crostata or a galette. What makes this so delicious is that there is apple cider in the dough, which adds to kind of that tenderness and the flakiness, and it also gives a little bit of a tangy quality that you can't quite put your finger on, but it's just really tasty. And I also am going to show you guys how to make it both with your hands if you don't have a food processor, and I'm also going to make it with a food processor. When you make a dough, I think that you should double up, because you can put your dough wrapped up in plastic wrap and put it in the fridge for up to a week and in the freezer for up to 2 months. So if you're going to go through the process of making it, you should double up. Butter is very essential. A couple of things that I want to teach you guys. For one, you should cut up your butter into smaller pieces and pop it in the freezer. Reason being is that you really want that butter to be extra cold, because you don't want it to completely dissipate from working it either with your hands or with the blade in the food processor. The more you work a dough, the butter doesn't hold form anymore, and you really want that butter when it goes into the oven, and when you roll it out, you want to see those little flecks of butter, because that's going to add to those incredibly buttery layers and that light dough. I love making these. I'm gonna do it with raspberry, thyme, and lime. I've made it last week, but I lost the content for blueberry and lemon. I have one in Cook Beautiful that is ginger and rhubarb. In the winter and in the fall, you could use pear and you can use apple. So it's so versatile. I'm gonna take you through the process right now. So I've gone ahead and prepared 3 tablespoons of sugar here. I am going to zest 1 lime directly into this sugar. And then I'm also going to put a tablespoon of thyme leaves into the sugar as well. Essentially, I'm going to massage the sugar together with the zest and with the thyme, and it's going to release all of those incredibly fragrant essential oils that are both in the herbs and in the citrus, and it's going to flavor the sugar. If you hold the thyme at the very top and you put your finger on the very tip of the stem and you just pull down, it kind of releases the leaves from the stem. 1 stick of unsalted butter here. Pop it in the freezer. We have 1½ cups of flour. 1 tablespoon of sugar, and now I have 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. So my butter's not quite ready. I am gonna take this ice, I'm gonna put 1/4 cup water into it, and then I'm gonna take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and add it to my ice water, and that is going to get combined in our dough. Butter has come out of the freezer, and I'm gonna drop pieces of the butter in various places. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of the flour and I'm gonna pinch the butter. You're gonna flatten the butter with your hands. So first, just kind of massage it a little bit. You use your thumb and your pointer finger to smash the butter. As the butter starts to soften a little bit, I'm gonna keep kind of pushing the butter into the flour. And you wanna continue to do this until you see flattened pea-sized pieces of the butter mixed into the flour. So if you would have done this when the butter was not frozen, it would have gotten soft too quickly as you were massaging it. So that really is an essential step. Going to slowly pour that ice water, just a little at a time, and do the same thing. Work it into the dough until it feels incorporated, and then add a little bit more. So you want it to begin to start to hold its shape. Just gonna massage it a little bit more, but again, if you overwork the dough, the consistency is not as flaky. I have a piece of plastic wrap here. There's my dough. I'm gonna put it right in the center. I'm gonna pat it into a disc. So I don't know if you guys can see, but there are still chunks of the butter. So it hasn't dissipated, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, 1 hour at least. You can also do this the night before and let it sit in the fridge for 24 hours. I just made the dough with my hands. And now I'm going to take you through the process of repeating the same thing, but using a Cuisinart food processor. I have it being used with the dough blade, which is a little less sharp than the regular blade. So I will take you through that process. So I'm going to use the pulse function rather than the constant spinning function. Just mixing the flour and the sugar. I'm going to disperse the butter. Again, I'm using that pulse function. I don't want to turn it on continuously because it will overwork the dough. I'm going to take my ice cubes out and I'm going to slowly pulse and pour at the same time. So you know that it's done when you hold it together and it still begins to take shape, but it's a little crumbly. So I'm going to add a tad bit more liquid and then be done. So now I'm going to prepare the fruit. I have already gone ahead and prepared the sugar with the lime zest and with the thyme. I have 2 6-ounce of raspberries, and whether you do this with absolutely any fruit, whether it's apple or a blueberry or peaches, you're always going to want a couple of things. You're going to want to add a little bit of extra sweetness with some sugar, and you're going to want some sort of acid. So lemon, orange, lime. And then I'm going to put a little bit of flour over the entire mixture because I'm also adding some lime juice to it, which is going to liquefy the fruit. So in order to make sure that it doesn't kind of just dissipate when you put it in the oven, I'm going to put a little bit of flour over the fruit, which is going to just help it kind of stay a little bit thicker and not kind of run out. So let's do that. 1/8 teaspoon of salt, some lime juice, and then I'm going to put a little vanilla extract in, some flour, and don't worry, I know it doesn't look so pretty with all the white clinging to it, but you don't notice it once it bakes. I just put flour on the parchment and now I'm going to put it on my rolling pin. I'm going to start in the center and I'm going to push down and forward. So you kind of want it to become about a 1/4 inch thick. You don't have to worry too much about these parts separating, but if you can, push them together and go for it. You're going to take the edge of your parchment and you're literally just going to pull it and go right over the fruit. If there is extra, you can literally just pull it apart and you just go around the entire tart until you've gone all the way around. You have a perfect little package, but that's perfectly imperfect. I have 1 egg here. You're basically just going to brush this onto the edges of the pastry and sprinkle it with turbinado sugar so that it's a little bit crispy and crunchy and golden on the exterior. Just gonna give a sprinkle of turbinado sugar right over the fruit. And now I'm gonna transfer this onto a pan and put it in a 350-degree oven. This beauty just came out of the oven. Fresh lime zest. I'm also gonna put a couple of sprigs of fresh thyme.